Hello, and thank you for joining us for this study. To begin, let me tell you what this channel is and what it's not. In 1733, Isaac Newton published a book called Observations on the Prophecies of Daniel and the Apocalypse or Revelation of St. John. He didn't call it predictions or revelations. He called it observations because that's what scientists do. They observe, they document, they test. From Newton's deep and detailed studies in the scriptures, he calculated a number of momentous prophetic events would culminate around the year 2060. But as we showed in our first video, he made that calculation using biblical 360-day prophetic years and not our modern 365-day years. When you do the conversion correctly, Isaac Newton's 2060 becomes our year 2030. Now here's the thing. I'm not Isaac Newton. I'm not claiming his authority, his genius, or his credentials. However, my two different careers have now helped me to prepare for these studies. As noted in our first video, my first and long career included robotics, virtual reality, AI, and 3D imaging, through which I developed a great respect for science and math. And my second career, where I now earn my living, finds me as a substitute teacher for a small town school nestled quietly in the country, where I love all the students, teachers, and staff who've graciously accepted me among their midst. The main task in substitute teaching is to follow the teacher's lesson plans. So perhaps you can now view me as Isaac Newton's substitute teacher. He's been called away. He's been gone for 300 years. But he left a detailed lesson plan. And as any good substitute teacher would do, I'm going to follow these plans as faithfully as I can. Newton loved truth. He loved precision. He loved evidence. And if he were here today, he would want us to test his year 2030 hypothesis, not just accept it or reject it based on opinions or bias. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at and observe a number of Bible prophecies that appear to be unfolding right now in our headlines, in our skies, and in our lifetime that also appear to support Isaac Newton's 2030 warning. Not speculation, observation. So let's begin with what the ancient prophet Daniel was told to do with the remarkable prophecies he was given. Here, the prophet Daniel was told to seal his prophecies until he, the angel, said, "Go your way, Daniel, for the words are shut up and sealed until the time of the end." Daniel 12, verse 9. Daniel's prophecy then goes on to reveal some interesting insight. And none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise will understand. Daniel 12, verse 10. So here in Daniel chapter 12, the angel tells him that the prophetic words would be shut up and sealed until the time of the end, which Isaac Newton wrote would start when Israel would once again become a nation, with Jerusalem reunited as its capital. And now today, both of these two major prophecies have been fulfilled in 1948 and 1967, exactly as the ancient Bible prophecies said would happen. But notice the warning and the promise. None of the wicked shall understand, but the wise will understand. In other words, these prophecies would be understood, but only at the right time and only by those genuinely seeking truth. Now, let's hear what Isaac Newton said concerning these things. Isaac Newton responds, "If they, Bible prophecies, are never to be understood, To what end did God reveal them? Certainly, he did it for the edification or guidance of the church. And if so, then it is certain that the church shall at length attain to the understanding of such. Isaac Newton asked the obvious question. If these prophecies are never to be understood, why did God reveal them in the first place? Newton concluded that they were meant to be understood, but at length, meaning eventually, at the appointed time. And here's something Newton understood that many modern Christians don't. He wasn't talking about everyone. Newton's remnant warning. He then clarifies his statement concerning who will understand as he writes, I do not mean all who call themselves Christians, but a remnant, a few scattered ones who God has chosen. This is important. Newton wasn't expecting the mainline church establishment to understand these prophecies. He was looking for individuals scattered across denominations at the appointed time, who at that time would begin to search the scriptures for themselves, which brings us to Newton's most important instruction. So, here's Isaac Newton's warning and plea to us. Let me therefore beg of you not to trust to the opinion of any man or woman concerning these things, including church leaders. For so is at great odds, meaning a high probability, that you shall be deceived. This warning includes me in these studies. Don't just believe anything I say. I could be wrong. Don't trust any reverend, minister, priest, or teacher, or any person without verifying what they say concerning all these things for yourself. And Newton goes on to instruct us how to verify these things. Search the scriptures yourself. Frequent reading. Constant meditation. Earnest prayer for understanding. That's the scientific method applied to Scripture. Observe, document, test, verify. So when I show you prophecies today, I'm giving you chapter and verse. You can verify every claim I make. That's Newton's method. That's how this channel works. And that is the lesson plan we will follow. Now, before going on to an interesting prophecy we will look at, which is fulfilling today, we need to address something important that follows in line with what Newton just said. Many good people in churches today have been convinced to ignore Bible prophecies because of just two verses. First, you shall not know the times of the seasons. This concerns the specific timing of Israel's restoration as a kingdom, not about end times prophecy in general. Second, no one knows the day or the hour, but my Father only. This refers to the exact day and hour of Christ's return for his bride, not whether we can recognize the season or the signs leading up to it. These verses are often used to shut down any study of prophecy. And even worse, as we will see, these teachings not only directly contradict what Jesus commands us to do, but the second verses are an awesome fulfillment of Bible prophecy. Unfortunately, most churches today have disconnected themselves from the Jewish roots of the Bible and our New Testament or New Covenant Christian faith. Remember, our Lord Jesus is the Jewish Messiah. Christ is the Greek word for Messiah. And much of the New Testament can only be understood through the lens of ancient Jewish customs, especially the ancient Jewish wedding customs. Jesus is often portrayed as the coming bridegroom, with the believing church as his bride. And his being his Father's Son is confirmed in Psalm 2 and John 3:16. When viewed from this perspective, his prophetic fulfillment of the ancient Jewish wedding rite is stunning. And let's see why. The betrothal would begin with a shared cup of wine, called a kedushin, which signified the formal establishment of the covenant between the bridegroom and his bride. That was fulfilled through the cup of the new covenant during the Last Supper. Then the bridal price must be paid. This was painfully fulfilled on the cross, with his last words often translated, "It is finished," literally mean paid in full. Afterwards, the bridegroom would then depart for his father's house, which was fulfilled in his ascension. Then at that time, new rooms, abiding places, would be added to the father's house to accommodate the coming bride. And only after this, it would then be the father who decides when the bridegroom will go for his bride. This is critical to understand prophetically. The bridegroom can only return for his bride when the father decides the bridal chamber is ready. And when asked when the wedding would be, the bridegroom would always and truthfully say, "Only my father knows." And then the father's "Now's the time, son," would usually be given at night, immediately followed by a loud shout and a trumpet or shofar blast, when the bridegroom, along with the wedding party, would gleefully go to snatch away his bride, time so she would not be expecting it. Then they would all joyfully return to his father's house for the wedding supper in great celebration. See the parable of 10 virgins and the rapture prophecies. So when Jesus says, "Only my Father knows," it is the fulfillment of Bible prophecy, and not a reason to ignore Bible prophecies. As we search the scriptures, we find Jesus never said to ignore his warning signs. In fact, he clearly teaches the exact opposite, as he commands us to watch for the prophetic warning signs, as we find here in Luke 21:36. "Watch therefore, and pray always, that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass." Watch for what? If we're not supposed to know what to watch for, this command makes no sense. But Jesus then clarifies exactly what he means. As we find here in Mark 13:29, Jesus goes on to warn, "When you see these things that we are commanded to watch for, know that it is near, at the door." We're commanded to see, to know, to recognize when it's near. Not the exact day or hour, but the season, the proximity, the signs. And then, even the Apostle Peter is now reminding us to know and be mindful of Bible prophecies. "Beloved, I now write to you the second epistle, in both of which I stir up your pure minds by way of reminder, that you may be mindful of the words which were spoken before by the holy prophets." Peter is here reminding us of the commandment to know and watch for the prophecies concerning the Lord's return. Peter now gets very specific as he adds a prophecy and warning concerning the church in the last days. Knowing this first, that scoffers, can also be translated mockers, will come in the last days, walking according to their own lust and saying, "Where is the promise of his coming?" Peter's warning that in the last days or end times, people within the church and from the pulpits would scoff at and ridicule those who warn the prophetic warning signs are now being seen, which makes this yet another prophecy we can see fulfilling today. And This is exactly what Isaac Newton warned we would see in the years leading up to 2030. A recent poll showed that only around 2% of churches teach Bible prophecy today. How many prophetic warning signs have you been taught to watch for? And what opinion does your church hold concerning those who now take Bible prophecy seriously? Yet, here are only a few of the many, many prophetic warning signs we're told the world would begin to see sometime soon after Israel would once again be regathered as a nation, with Jerusalem reunited as its capital. Gaza and Hamas, both are linked to the coming apocalypse. A Russia-Iran alliance, which will trigger a coming war of the ages. China rising and will one day destroy 1/3 of all mankind. Global weather extremes, heat, cold, and historic storms. Deadly diseases spreading, and many more. Now, let's look at a specific prophecy that 99% of Christians have never connected to our current time. Matthew 24:22, Jesus speaking. Unless those days were shortened, no human beings or flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. The prophecy. Days will be shortened. The traditional interpretation. Figurative language for mercy. A metaphor for ending the tribulation quickly. However, using Isaac Newton's method of interpretation, literal shortening of days, Earth's rotation changes, measurable, observable, scientific. Here in Matthew 24, Jesus is describing future events and says, unless those days were shortened, no flesh or human beings would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. For 2,000 years, most scholars interpret this as figurative, a metaphor for God showing mercy by ending the tribulation quickly. But by using Isaac Newton's literal method of interpretations, what if days shortened means exactly that? The actual length of days on Earth changes. Sounds crazy, right? Except here's what we know from NASA and scientific observation. Here are the facts we know from NASA and scientific observation. Historically, for millennia, the Earth's rotation has been gradually slowing and the day length has been increasing by tiny fractions of a second each year. This is measurable and documented scientific fact. Until year 2020, when something unexpected happened. Between 2020 and 2025, the historic trend reversed. Days suddenly started getting shorter. This was reported in Scientific American, Nature Journal, and multiple scientific sources. Scientists are baffled. There's no explanation or consensus as to why this is happening now. Here's the technical reality of global GPS system requirements. An atomic clock precision is plus or minus 40 nanoseconds, that's billionths of a second. The Earth's rotation rate is hard-coded or permanently fixed into GPS algorithms. GPS assumes this exact number of seconds per day. Any deviation equals a cumulative GPS positioning error. What's actually happening? Days have shortened by approximately 1.26 milliseconds. That's 1,260,000 nanoseconds. GPS can compensate with leap seconds when the length of days increase and rotation slows, as it has for all recorded history. But we now have unprecedented acceleration. The Earth's rotation is speeding up. There is no standard protocol to fix this phenomenon. Ballistic missiles use inertial guidance plus GPS correction. With an ICBM flight time of 30 to 40 minutes, the error compounds rapidly. The impact scale. A 1 millisecond per day error over a 30-minute flight equals approximately 30 meters of horizontal drift. Modern missiles have a built-in 30-meter CEP safety margin. Translation: this built-in safety margin is now being consumed by this unexplained anomaly. Now, this might seem like a minor technical curiosity, days getting shorter by milliseconds, but consider this. GPS satellites and ballistic missile guidance systems are calibrated to Earth's rotation rate within nanosecond precision. When Earth's rotation unexpectedly accelerates, as it has since 2020, those calculations drift. Over the 30-minute flight time of an intercontinental ballistic missile, even millisecond discrepancies compound into positioning errors. Potentially, the difference between hitting a target with maximum damage or slightly missing it to reduce the damage. As noted, the scientific community has protocols for when Earth's rotation slows. They add leap seconds to compensate. But we've never dealt with a sustained acceleration at this scale. There's no playbook for this. Matthew 24 says, unless those days were shortened, no human beings or flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Perhaps this isn't just spiritual metaphor. Perhaps it's a literal prophecy about destabilizing or even manipulating the terrifying ballistic missile systems modern warfare now depends on in order to graciously spare a number or select few of people on Earth. Now, what are the odds or probability that Jesus predicts days shortened 2,000 years ago? Modern scientists confirm Earth's rotation is changing, and a reversal occurs in the 2020s, just as we're approaching Newton's calculated 2030. The probability estimates for our days shortening phenomenon, used and taught as the de facto standard for scientific, mathematical, and statistical analysis, compound probability is the likelihood of two or more independent events occurring together. So to calculate our mathematical compound probability, we must first estimate the probabilities of 5 distinct independent events. Event number 1, a 2,000-year-old prophecy accurately predicting days shortening around year 2030. Estimated probability, 1 in 10,000. Number 2, an Earth rotation reversal from slowing down to speeding up. Estimated probability, 1 in 1,000. Number 3, this Earth rotation reversal event occurs specifically in the 2020s. Estimated probability, 1 in 200. Number 4, the timing aligns with Isaac Newton's year 2030 calculation. Estimated probability, 1 in 50. And number 5, scientists have no explanation with complete lack of consensus. Estimated probability, 1 in 10. The compound probability calculation. This shows the standard compound probability formula, which simply multiplies the individual probabilities of each event. And then by inserting the estimated probability of each of our 5 events, we arrive at a calculated probability of Think about this. A 100 billion to 1 numerical calculation is statistically significant. Extremely so. It proves these 5 events coming together as they have is no accident. And to describe this unusual and unexpected convergence as just a coincidence is scientifically, mathematically, and statistically impossible. What makes this so powerful? Documented biblical prophecy, scientific verification, anomalous event, unprecedented reversal, perfect timing, exceeds the scientific 5 sigma statistical standard for acceptance, and it's verifiable. But why would we start this Bible prophecy series, which is designed to accurately test Isaac Newton's year 2030 prediction, with such a seemingly obscure Bible prophecy? Let's listen to this prophecy once again, closely. Unless those days were shortened, no human beings or flesh would be saved. So why did we start with this prophecy? Well, we're starting here because Jesus himself connects this shortening of days prophecy to what Isaac Newton calls the time of the end, sometimes called the apocalypse, which Newton warns may begin sometime around the year 2030, just a short time away. Isaac Newton's 2030 is testable. 2030 will arrive soon. Either these prophecies will prove accurate or they won't. No ambiguity, no moving goalposts. That's what observations are. That's what science demands. That's what Newton would expect. So here's the challenge for this series. I'm going to show you specific Bible prophecies, chapter and verse, nothing hidden, nothing invented. I'm also going to show you the data. We use math and science, but mainly world news headlines and events. For God will not fulfill his prophecies in secret, but so the whole world can see. And some of these upcoming studies will take your breath away. All this to help you decide for yourself. Remember Newton's words. Don't trust any man's opinion, including mine. Search the scriptures yourself. Verify the data yourself. And if these studies resonate with you, hit the like button. It helps this message reach others who need to hear Newton's warning. And then subscribe to this channel. I'll add new videos as quickly as I can, including the next one on Gaza, with an interesting asteroid Apophis connection. There will also be at least 2 completely separate and independent Bible prophecy studies, which also point to Newton's year 2030, as well as a number of new Bible prophecy studies, which you probably won't find anywhere else, which I think you'll find stunning and fascinating. You'll also find helpful links in the description. And in closing, here's a short note on my recent book, Isaac Newton 2060, which is now available on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle formats. Thank you for watching.